Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Well, here we have it, Monday morning, as we like to say around here, no shortage of news in the Bitcoin mining sector. We've started to receive November production results from Marathon and Bitfarms, so we're going to be talking about that. In addition, we've got some big news and headlines making way in the markets this morning and a mid-morning market update. So a lot to go through. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the mining sector right now. If you think this is the week we're going to crack through the $100,000 sell wall, and of course your outlook into 2025. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. All right, guys, so here we go. Monday morning, an action-packed tail of the tape. So far, we've got two companies already reporting November results, Anthony. So Bitfarms out of the gate as expected, but Marathon now has stepped up and putting their report out on the first business day as well. So we're going to get into that. We've got some news from our other miners and a big announcement once again from MicroStrategy with Michael Saylor smashing the buy button again this week. So before we get into all that, Anthony, Bitcoin price right now hovering in the $96,500 range. It was starting to pull back last night. I almost texted you saying, hey, we're getting that traditional Monday morning dump. However, it did rally going into the open and now just kind of hovering in this range. The one thing I did want to bring up here, Anthony, we broke through the $90,000 milestone back on the 14th of November. So we're now the 2nd of December. 2 weeks of consolidation. At some point, we've got to make this next leg up, and I feel like it could be this week. How about you?
Yeah, we've mentioned it enough times on the podcast. It's a case of when it's imminently going to happen. There's too many positive news stories out there, and we'll come on to some of those during the podcast. But yeah, there's more people seem to be buying Bitcoin than selling at the moment. So it's just a case of when it'll go through. I hope it goes through this week and get it out of the way, because it'll save us time having to repeat ourselves.
There you go. We can get on to the 110 videos. Now, you mentioned some big news in the market, so we're going to look at our miners or the mid-morning miner update. But before we do, MicroStrategy, which is another company that we've been talking about more and more on the channel, they came out with yet again a blockbuster announcement here, Anthony. So I'll let you go through the details. But the fact of the matter is Michael Saylor's now holding 2% of the world's Bitcoin. Is this getting too big a position for one company?
It feels that way. I mean, Bitcoin is decentralized. It's there for everyone to have a part of it. And you've got the likes of BlackRock, who've got over 2% of every Bitcoin that's ever going to be produced. And you've got Michael Saylor literally on 2% now as we speak. He's bought another 15,400 Bitcoin this week to add to last week's shopping spree of about 55,000 Bitcoin. We talked about 55,000 Bitcoin effectively being 200 days of production. So gives you it's a lot of Bitcoin to buy, and the miners aren't producing it as quick as he wants to buy it. And there's other institutions buying it as well now. So we're also seeing a lot of other updates from some public, some non-public companies buying it and putting it on the balance sheet. So this is good news stories after good news stories. So this ties into the fact that, the Bitcoin price, because of the natural supply of Bitcoin, is being taken up far quicker than we anticipated. The price was to start to rally. And so this is beyond cyclical Bitcoin price, and this is just purely supply and demand. And if you haven't got a little bit of Bitcoin in your wallet, now's the time to start thinking about it because 96,000 ain't going to be around for a long time, in my view.
No kidding. Yeah, as they say, it might make sense to get a little bit in case it catches on here. To talk about Black Friday or Cyber Monday shopping, hey, going out there dropping billions of dollars on Bitcoin. A little bit different than what I was shopping for this weekend. Hey, the other macro news here I just saw across Twitter this morning, Anthony. Eric Trump, so Donald Trump's son, he's going to be making a keynote speech in Bitcoin conference MENA. So this is the Asian counterpart, I guess, to Bitcoin Las Vegas or Amsterdam, which we were just in Europe. But another great, I guess, sign from the president, from the administration that he is pro Bitcoin, sending his own son there to be part of the conference.
Yeah, we saw Donald Trump's other son at Nashville while we were there. He was doing a lot of the preparations for Donald Trump's arrival during that 3-day conference. And now his other son, Eric, who's one of the vice presidents of Trump Incorporate, going to Abu Dhabi for the conference there. So, yeah, it'd be interesting, whether he comes up and actually mentions the Bitcoin reserve in that speech, because, it was mentioned in Nashville that should he be successful, and we've already started to see the paperwork go through to now for the to the Senate to support this procedure. The US government have got 200,000 Bitcoin already, so this is a case of wanting to grow this to 1 million over the next sort of 4 or 5 years' time, and they'll have to be quick because Michael Saylor's been buying it up quicker than they're buying it up. So he's already got 2 years worth. BlackRock have already got 2 years worth. So the government have got a little bit of catching up to do. But yeah, it'd be a great set of speakers for Abu Dhabi. Looking to try and get the logistics together to go out there myself for that conference. But I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. I'd love to get over there myself, Anthony. So with that being said, now we'll get into the mid-morning market update. You mentioned some of the macro tailwinds, I guess, moving for Bitcoin. It really brings up a great question around where does this bull run end? You talk about supply and demand, the imbalance here, the amount of buying, and we can only imagine once Microsoft, these governments, all these other blue chips start to pile in, going to be quite an exciting sector to be covering on the channel. So with that being said, now we'll move into the mid-morning miner market update. A lot of change here. We've pulled this one a few times, starting to probably lean more red than green. We do have a couple standouts on both sides here. Anything specifically standing out to you today, Anthony?
Well, yeah, I mean, generally it's a red day for miners. Bitcoin price hasn't dropped significantly since Friday close, and we had a half-day close on Friday to account for the holiday period. But CleanSpark's up today. It was up over 5% earlier when we last looked, and they've got their results coming out tonight, so that'll be interesting to see how this is their full year results for 2024. So this will be interesting to see these and see what their costs are, in comparison to what they were in the previous quarter, for them. So, and I think it's the last set of results from the public miners to be released. Now we've got literally all the other miners' results in. So we start doing some broader analysis, comparing some of the miners in terms of costs. We know some miners have tried to do it themselves, but we'll be impartial and look at it from the results across the board for every miner. So,
hey, one comment on CleanSpark too, Anthony. Sorry to jump in. Just interesting. I have the screenshot of their press release talking about Monday as earnings day. So a little bit of clever timing there, not giving the shorts a lot of time to cover over the weekend. So when we talk about percentage of short, you'll see days to cover is another metric. A lot of times there's so many short shares held, it would take multiple days worth of trading or volume to cover these positions. So I thought that was interesting. We've talked about the timing from a negative perspective, CleanSpark with the ATM and the long weekends and all that kind of thing. On the other side of the coin here, I thought this was kind of a clever move, and we'll talk about some of these strategies to maybe flush out the short positions a little bit later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gryphon in the green as well today, so that's positive news for them. I haven't seen many updates. We didn't get an update for November from Gryphon, so we'll hopefully get one in December for their November mining update. So yeah, and Wolf broke through $8 as well this morning. It's retraced a little bit from there. Hive's in the green, but the rest of the miners are in the red. The biggest losers, Argo Blockchain was down over 20% opening this morning. They've announced a dilution of I think it's over 60, 70 million shares at 5.5 pence a share. So that's that was a significant discount to what the share price was on Friday. And we've talked about this before. Some of these miners aren't able to have an ATM. So if they want to raise capital, there are a few levers that's available. And if they want to use shares as equity for creating capital, then they have to go to the market and effectively offer shares at a discount. And Argo suffered from this time and time again. And usually we see these sort of 20% discounts, so it entices maybe some of the institutions to buy some of the shares to get that benefit straight away. I mean, if you're issuing, 60, 70 million shares and there's already 630 million in existence, you can see how many, how big that dilution is. And bear in mind, we talked about this before. So if they're diluting the company by about 10%, then the discount's going to be at a minimum of 10% because that's the value of the shares once the dilutions have occurred. So the likes of Argo in previous times have been offering 20%. So that's their price down there, showing it 18% down. Core Scientific, we'll come on to the Core Scientific again, but they've just announced they're issuing a 500 million convertible debt with the potential to be 575 million. And they're going to use that for capital requirements and running costs. So nothing about the Bitcoin at the moment with their update.
Yeah, makes sense to maybe just move right into that. We can do the production results next, but Core Scientific coming out with that statement, almost following the MicroStrategy Marathon-esque feel. Marathon also came out with another big announcement in relation $700 million with a potential upsize. So you talk about the fact that some of these smaller companies don't even have access to an ATM. Now think about the fact that some of these companies have access to 0% interest loans or convertible notes. Just an incredible phenomenon we're seeing take over this sector, really stemming from what obviously Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy were able to financially engineer there. But makes sense. Maybe let's jump into CORZ, Anthony, see the strategy here, and then we can follow up with Marathon.
Yeah, so as I say, today the company announced its plans to offer 500 million in convertible senior notes. And what these are, for those that don't understand what convertible notes are, these are effectively loans that can be changed into the company stock at a later date. Now, they haven't released the interest rate, the conversion rate, and other terms of the notes, and that'll be more determined at the pricing of the offering. But what they have said is that that they're allowing buyers to purchase an extra 75 million. So that's potentially 575 million in total. And that'll earn interest every 6 months. And they're due on June the 15th, 2031. So, that's, 6.5 years away. The notes holders can change their notes into cash or shares of stock under certain conditions. And the company can also buy back these notes after June the 22nd, 2028, if the stock price is high enough. And as I said earlier, the company will use the money raised for business expenses and for growth. And we know from a growth perspective, Core Scientific have got an ambitious growth, certainly in both Bitcoin mining, where they're going to replace their fleet with the block machines that are going to be coming through in 2025, and there's 15 exahash of those. That's a significant amount of funding required there. But also the HPC contract with CoreWeave, which currently stands at 500 megawatts, and they have an additional 130 megawatts available for further HPC hosting. So a lot of capital requirement for refurbishing building sites, getting infrastructure in place for that sort of growth for both those business units.
Yeah, that's really good insight, Anthony. They're growing on all aspects there, burning the candle at both ends, you say. Now, Marathon, it's interesting you bring up the structure of these convertible notes because Marathon obviously made a big announcement last week. They bought a bunch of Bitcoin. Now they're running the playbook back again with an additional 700 million with the potential to upsize, but in the use of funds, Anthony, interestingly enough, they're using a portion of this money to pay back the convertibles with the 2026 expiration. So almost paying back the debt with new debt to further push out those maturity dates and give themselves more time for that Bitcoin on balance sheet to appreciate. So just remarkable financial engineering. I listened to an interview from Michael Saylor on the weekend, and he talked about the fact that he's an engineer to start with, and they're really spending a lot of time strategizing about which financial instrument and structurally how to put this business together. But it definitely seems like they've hit a winner here.
Absolutely. Yeah, and 700 million, these are the highlights of this update. 700 million, principal amount of 0% interest. They're due in 2031, so that's another, as I say, 6, 7 years away. They're going to use 50 million of the proceeds to repurchase a portion of its existing convertible notes due in 2026, and then use the remaining to acquire Bitcoin, and for general corporate purposes, which may include, working capital, strategic acquisitions, expansion of existing assets, and the repayment of debt and other outstanding obligations. So potentially 805 million this week on top of the 1 billion they raised in the previous week. So again, very much following the Michael Saylor playbook here, Fred Thiel, and yeah, be interesting. I mean, it did actually, raise. When I saw this update, it thought about my recent holiday to Egypt, where I was able to see some of those wonderful pyramids.
There you go. Yeah, it definitely does start to have that sense of feel. And it's great, obviously, when Bitcoin price is going up and people want access and are willing to give you 0% loans and all the rest. If and when the Bitcoin price starts to fall, you've got to then either pay these loans back or convert them into shares, which would mean dilution for the company going into a bear market. I don't know how this is all going to unravel, but on the way up, or at least in the bull run here, Anthony, it definitely seems to be a move that's paid off handsomely for both MicroStrategy and Marathon, with their share price up nearly $10 since that initial news last week. So, in addition to the convertible note, they also came out with their production report. So, great to see Marathon coming out with such a strong month, over 900 Bitcoin, which I believe is a post-halving record.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.
Yeah, no, it's a good number for Marathon. I mean, the last time we saw an update this sort of size was in December last year when they mined 1,853. But yeah, 907 Bitcoin. Their energized hash rate is now at 46.1. That's a 15% increase on the previous month. So a big increase in hash rate there. That's six exahash effectively going online. We've seen some big hash rate monthly updates from a few of the miners this year. We've seen some aggressive increases in hash rate as well. And we talked about this all the way from the middle of the year, I think, about some of the companies that we were highlighting. And we looked at Marathon, and they at the time were about 30 exahash. They had a target to 50 exahash. We talked about Riot and IREN having their own sites. And we'll come on to IREN in a second, but Riot have certainly are getting their way towards their target. CleanSpark look imminently to go to their target. Bitfarms is one that we had question marks over, and again, we'll come on to their update shortly. But Marathon at this sort of level now, it's imminent, about to happen. They'll achieve their 50 exahash, because it looks like they've been replacing significant number of machines for more efficient machines to get to that level. And adding to this, they acquired nearly 13,000 Bitcoin year to date, an average price of $77,692 a coin. So, that brings their Bitcoin yield per share to 37%. So they've got a total in their treasury at the moment, just 41 Bitcoin short of 35,000. That's valued at, probably over 3.3 billion today with the price of Bitcoin at 96. So it's it's a good update. They're not selling. They're adding everything to the treasury. They've grown extensively this year. They've been buying Bitcoin, doing everything there, and if the Bitcoin price keeps going where it's going like that, it's been a great strategy. We have seen, sort of in 2021 where miners were buying Bitcoin, then it didn't quite work out in 2022. We saw the Bitcoin price drop, but I seem to think this time, if we do have a pullback, it's going to be nowhere near the pullbacks that we've seen in previous cycles. The level of buying has just been it's just been too high in terms of where we've been in previous years, and now you've got entities that are gathering percentages of the whole total Bitcoin production. We've already talked about two having 2% each, so this is only going one way. This is going higher. So it looks like this strategy will pay off at least in the short term for Marathon, and the fact that these notes will have 7 years, I think it will pay off in the long term as well.
Most definitely. It gives them the opportunity to get back into the next bull run at least. You do bring up a great point, though. I know Michael Saylor said he's never going to sell his Bitcoin. A lot of these Bitcoin miners, though, they have said they are going to sell their Bitcoin. And that's another thing I thought about last night, Anthony. As soon as these companies, say CleanSpark or whatever, start to sell Bitcoin, that's going to signal to the market that they feel we're close to the top, and that may have some unwinding effects on the share price as well. So I know when we talked to IREN and Wolf, they said, hey, holding Bitcoin is one thing, determining when to sell it is another. And we've seen companies buy high, sell low, and everything in between. So that was another angle. I thought, hey, how's this going to work when they actually announce their first sale of Bitcoin? And what's that going to do to investor sentiment? So time will tell on that one. Now, you mentioned Bitfarms as well. They obviously put out their production report. This one, unlike Marathon, was down month over month in terms of total Bitcoin produced. However, they were able to finally achieve that 12 exahash operational goal towards the end of November.
Yeah, so they've they actually achieved during the month of November 12.8 exahash. So broke through that 12 barrier for the first time. It was their target for the end of June. It took 5 months longer than expected, which the market hasn't appreciated at all. Bitfarms share price is one of the North American miners. If you look at the last sort of 2 months, the share price has hardly moved at all. I think it's up like literally 1%, where we've seen the likes of, HUT up 100%, Bitdeer up 100%. Most of the miners that we cover, Marathon, Core Scientific, CleanSpark, up 50, 60, 70%, Cypher, TeraWulf, really, and Bitfarms has struggled, and the reason it struggled is because of this not getting that hash rate in. Now they haven't indicated as to why, but we know that they've had significant issues with the T21 miners. They may also be having issues with miners in terms of delivery of miners as well, because we know that there are, miners at the border, being held. So maybe that applies to Bitfarms as well. We don't know for certain, so we're only speculating at this point. But even in their update, they've basically said, that they're upgrading 19,000 T21 miners. Now, bear in mind, Ben Gagnon came on the podcast earlier this year and said the T21 miners were operating 30% more efficiently than it said on the box. So he was really pleased. But now they're changing or upgrading those 19,000 T21 miners to S21 Pro miners with anticipated delivery in December and January. So we will start seeing the hash rate start to improve maybe by the end of January. They have a target of 21, or they had a previous target of 21 in December. I think Ben cleared up that wouldn't be achieved on the last podcast. So I think that's been put back to sort of like middle of 2025. So this will go a way to doing that. Now, bringing these new miners in does bring some positivity with it, because what it will do is it will reduce the efficiency, or improve the efficiency, by reducing it to 19 joules a terahash, and that's a 10% improvement in efficiency for the first half of 2025. They're at 21 at the moment, which is one of the lowest, or one of the best efficiencies of all the North American miners. So with the machines they've got, they are producing Bitcoin relatively cheaper than peer miners. This will help them to improve that even further. Now, in terms of what they've done with their coin, they mined 204 coins during the month at an average operating hash rate of 10.7. So we talked about achieving 12.8, but the operating hash rate is 10.7. Now, it was 10.6 during the month of October. Their full hash rate in the month of October was 11.5. It's got to 12.8. So again, there's a disparity there about, what they're able to achieve. Was all the mining machines that have been implemented in Pennsylvania added at the end of the month to get that 12.8 then, or are they having more issues with operating with machines during the month to bring that average down to 10.7? Because that feels there's a 20% gap there between what they're operating at and what they've got machines energized at. Again, that's concern there. They sold 171 Bitcoin. So of the 234, they've added 33 to the treasury. Now, this is where it gets interesting now, because they've also transferred from their treasury 351 of the Bitcoin to Bitmain in accordance with the miner upgrade agreement announced on the 12th of November. And Bitmain will upgrade these 18,853 Bitmain T20 miners to S21 miners for an incremental cost of 33.2 million, paid in Bitcoin. Now, the company have an option to redeem the Bitcoin for cash in 4 quarterly payments at a fixed price of 94,600 per coin. So this was the price of Bitcoin when at the time it was originally tendered. So effectively, what you could say is that Bitmain have received collateral of 351 Bitcoin, and if Bitfarms make these 4 payments, they'll have the 351 Bitcoin sent back to their treasury. So it's another way of providing some sort of collateral to make sure they make the payment. As I say, it's not a bad way to manage through the market there. Use your Bitcoin as collateral, but you've got to make those payments there. So we'll be looking at about $8.5 million every quarter over the next 4 quarters, and they'll get that Bitcoin back. So interesting. Whether they get the Bitcoin back for every payment they make, so a proportion of the Bitcoin comes back, that will also be interesting. But at the moment, their HODL is down to 870 Bitcoin, and that's still worth, over 80 million based on today's price of Bitcoin. So they've still got a significant HODL there. And finally, they've got 584 long-dated Bitcoin call options as at November the 30th, which is actually down from 802 at the prior end. So this is that synthetic HODL that you talked about before, Bryce.
Yeah, I'm interested to get more details on that, especially as they're starting to get out of some of those positions. But for me, the Bitfarms, the two kind of, changes in tone were really that T21 Ben was so excited about, spoke so highly about, and it just didn't seem to come to fruition or work out as expected. So now that notable shift to the S21s. Also, I've noticed in the language a few different press releases, they make reference to, at this point, X% of our operations are now based in the United States. I think they said with the Stronghold hosting, it would be now 75% of operations. So both with Hive and Bitfarms, I feel since Donald Trump has won and said, hey, we want to make the U.S. the hub for Bitcoin, these companies have changed their tone a little bit and are really now trying to associate themselves with the United States, obviously where a lot of the miners are already based out of. So interesting remarks
and
there.
Bryce, we saw the same last week in the updates we had with Bitdeer and with IREN. Both of those are non-US companies, both looking to locate their offices to the US as well. So it's not just the Canadian miners; it's also the other miners. And I think when we had Sam Tabar, he said exactly the same. So Bit Digital also looking to make that move then. So very interesting times.
It certainly is. Yeah, quite a herd mentality of redomicile into the United States for the benefits that we've talked about here. Now, another one of the companies, actually, we just had Kent Draper on the channel talking about redomiciling into the United States, was IREN. They've put out another phenomenal update today. 33% increase in hash rate, now up to 28 exahash. So we talk about some of the growth plans or strategies at these other companies, but IREN, this is a company that was at 2 exahash 2 years ago, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back a year before that, when I first spoke to Dan Roberts back in late 2021, when he, asked me if he could become part of the analysis I was doing at the time for about 6-7 miners, and I agreed, and he came through with all the requirements of being part of that group, and I think at the time they were half an exahash, so half an exahash then 3 years later at 28. And if you think of where they were at the start of this year, I think 6.2. So that's a meteoric rise in terms of hash rate for 1 year. No one's had a growth spurt like that in terms of hash rate in a year. Phenomenal. So yeah, 33% increase in its capacity, now at 28. It's also managed to reduce, and bear in mind, it was operating at 16 joules a terahash, which was by far the most efficient mining fleet in North America, but it's gone even better than an hour. It's gone to a low of 15 joules. Now, if you think about the S21 Pros, they operate at 15 joules. So this is pretty much the whole fleet of S21s Pros at their site, at the Childress site there. And this was due to the activation of its Childress Phase 3 substation. So that helped get that hash rate on there. And we've just talked about Marathon increasing their hash rate by 6, and we've gone on to IREN, they've done it by 7. So just when you think, there's a record for a month, IREN has just gone and devastated that one as well. So that's probably, 7 exahash. That's like growing the likes of Hive Digital in 1 month, effectively. The company's on track to reach 31 by the end of the year. Well, no one's going to bet against that now. And we said that all along. We were comfortable with our predictions that Riot and IREN having that one site operating was easier to manage than having multiple sites. And we take our hats off to the likes of Marathon and to CleanSpark, who've managed to do it over multiple sites. Obviously, we've already highlighted, the issues that Bitfarms have had with theirs. But yeah, great update by IREN today. And it's on track to reach that 31 exahash. We talked about the fact that, machines were being held at the borders, so maybe not receiving them. You raised it on one of our previous podcasts, I think even with the interview with Kent, that there was photographs on their update showing the machines in storage. Well, they've highlighted today that they've got sufficient miner inventory on site to support the expansion to 31 exahash. They've got 4 data center buildings operational, and the final 2 are nearing completion as we speak. Looking to 2025, IREN have already articulated they're going to rapidly grow to 50 exahash by the middle of the year. So by the end of June 2025, they'll be at 50 exahash, and they'll also be operating with 810 megawatts of data centers. And this is all because of the expansion of the Childress site there. Childress site will get to 510, and it's got a total amount of power there of 750 megawatts. So there's still another 240 megawatts of power to be utilized for further expansion next year.
Yeah, really just incredible growth out of Dan and team. I recall having him on the podcast at the start of the year saying, how on earth are you going to do 30 exahash? And he said, it's just a matter of plugging the machines in now. But it really is nice to see they're thinking a step ahead like that, landing all of these machines so they're right there ready to plug in as needed rather than worry about potential tariffs or border issues or strikes at the ports or whatever. Just great to see IREN's foresight there and thinking one step ahead, I guess, Anthony. We also talk about dilution a lot on the channel and HODL versus not HODL. If you're selling your HODL, where is the money going? This is a great practical example of exactly what you can do if you reinvest money into the business, going from half an exahash to 28 in only a few years' time. A 56x return in terms of hash rate, Anthony. Just incredible. So different strategies playing out here in the miner segment, but obviously a lot of excitement. I'll kick it back to you for any closing thoughts, Anthony. A lot of action for a Monday morning here. Great to get some good news articles out and continue to see these companies pushing those exahash targets.
Yeah, no, it's a good number of updates there. One thing we didn't touch on today, which is probably worth consideration, is when we're looking at these companies, is the amount of power available. And I can't stress this too much. There is an absolute gallop now by some of the big hyperscalers and those companies wanting to break into the HPC AR market that need power. They need the availability of infrastructure, and some of these miners have got significant amounts there. IREN have already brought forward their date for Sweetwater to be energized. 1.4 gigawatt site in sort of like early 2026. That's a year forward on their previous expectation. 1.4 gigawatt site is probably one of the largest sites in the US. And so that provides plenty of optionality for IREN. I mean, they could even sell that site as a site now for a hyperscaler to go in there, or lease the site, or do what Core Scientific have done and basically fit out the site and get a hyperscaler to come in there and put their GPUs into the site and have the site managed by IREN. So plenty of optionality. They're not the only company. Cypher have also got a number of sites. We've seen 3, 4, 5 different updates in as many months from Cypher, purchasing sites, having options on other sites. TeraWulf have a 500 megawatts of capacity at the Lake Mariner site there. And, then you've got Hut 8, who basically, said in the last podcast that they've got 430 about to be signed off by a HPC contract there. So we're just waiting for a name and a signature on there, but it's pretty much all done and dusted for them. So plenty of optionality in terms of power pipelines. Bitdeer have got a massive power pipeline. I think 2.5, 2.6 gigawatts. Cypher's at the same amount, 2.6. IREN's with that 1.4 there, plus the 810 they've already got. Plus there's options for another piece of land of about a gigawatt site. So do the maths, it's probably getting way over three gigawatts of power for them as well. So this is going to be an interesting, couple of years now as the dots start to line up as to what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting times. It's not just about Bitcoin mining anymore now. There's far more. These miners are doing far more than Bitcoin miners. Maybe we shouldn't be calling them Bitcoin miners anymore. That's the other thing.
Well, like we say, good thing we call it power mining analysis. Maybe we'll just call it power mining moving forward. But you're exactly right, Anthony. They already had a great thing going with the Bitcoin mining going into a bull run. This whole AI HPC craze just really fell on their doorsteps. And as people who already have this contracted power, just the right spot at the right time. But you're exactly accurate. It's going to be a very interesting sector to watch over the next few years here. And we're going to be covering each and every one of those updates. So guys, if you're still here, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. Let us know in the comment section if you think this week is going to be the $100,000 Bitcoin week or not, and how you're feeling about the miners to open up Monday morning. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.